Let's start this new week of the SportsMax Zone with cricket. West Indies secured a draw in their one-day international series against Ireland with a win in the third and final match on Sunday in Dublin. Player of the series, Casey Carty, followed up his century, 102 in the rained-out second ODI, with 170 in the final encounter to lead the West Indies to 385 for 7, their second highest score ever in one-day international cricket, and this after they were put into bat. Carty shared in two massive partnerships, a 137-run third-wicket stand with skipper Shea Hope, who contributed 75, and 97 for the fifth wicket with Justin Graves, who scored 50. Rain again interfered, causing Ireland's target to be adjusted to 363 from 46 overs. But a tight bowling spell from Jaden, who picked up 3 for 26, helped the visitors to dismiss the Irish for 165 in 29.5 overs to win by 197 runs on the Duckworth-Lewis Stern method and level the series at 1 apiece. Technically, the Irish got to 165 for 8, but two of their players were unable to bat. Now, skipper Shea Hope lauded the men in maroon for the strong comeback.
See, learning has been happening. Everyone took the learnings from the first game. We benched that one pretty quickly. We understood that we had to change things very quickly. And yeah, there's a lot of discussions around the camp. The guys knew that we had to change certain things and not one bad batting performance and make us a bad batting group. So the guy just banked on success that we had for the last couple of months and then used the information that we got from the conditions, from the surfaces, and obviously what Ireland did as a batting group as well. We took some of those things into our game and then transferred it into the next two. So it was a quick change. We could see that the learnings had been happening from before, and the conversation certainly helped that progression.
Yeah, meanwhile, Carty did not play much into the fanfare in capturing the MVP award for the series.
This is my job, you know. We practice to perform on the pitch, and I was just glad to be a part of or have an impact on today's win. Sadly, we couldn't get a result out of game 2, even though we had a very good total up on the board. But the series is drawn, and we didn't lose the series, so it's just to carry this momentum into the England series.
Yeah, the England series, by the way, starts on Thursday. Fazir Mohammed joins us now via Zoom to review the Ireland series. Fans, as usual, it's a pleasure to have you on the SportsMax Zone. And I want to start with a man who was brilliant in this series. Like most of the West Indies batsmen struggled in the first one-day international, but came to the party in a significant way in the second and third one-day internationals, and that's Casey Carty. What's your assessment of this young man and the quality that he possesses, Faz?
I think what we're seeing in Casey Carty is someone who is really coming into full flower as a proper international batsman. And when we saw him early on, let's say a couple of years ago, even in the World Cup qualifiers in Zimbabwe, you saw a player who seemed to still be fighting to establish himself. He was getting runs, but taking a long time. And then it seemed that breakthrough innings was the 100 against England last year at Kensington Oval to take West Indies to victory. And indeed, from that series to now, he's averaging 94 in one-day internationals. And he's batting with a freedom, with an authority, a level of command. But also there has to be a recognition that indeed when you're coming up against higher quality opposition, as we can expect in the next couple of days, as you mentioned, the series against England, we're going to have to see him really continue in that way, maybe not necessarily being as dominating, but you can't really argue with someone who's averaging nearly 100 over his last 8 or so one-day internationals. And he's really, I would say more than anything else, showing a level of confidence and being completely assured in the middle, where it looks as if almost any situation he can cope with quite easily.
Yeah, and it's interesting, fans, because at the end of the Ireland series, he was pretty close to quite an interesting record. Most runs scored by a West Indian across 7 consecutive one-day international matches. The record held by Viv Richards, I think, at 577 runs, one ahead of Chris Gale at 576, and now Carty 567. So he is pushing pretty close to 2 West Indies greats there. I look at his list day average, Faz, and he averages 36.61 in list day cricket. He's currently averaging 49.15 in his 34 one-day internationals. And I was in a group yesterday where someone was saying, well, based on what we have seen of him before the last 7 months or so, and based on his list day average, that he has no place averaging 49.15 out of 34 ODIs, and that maybe at this stage he's overachieving. Is that how you see it?
That might be the case based on those numbers, as you mentioned. But the point is, he would not be the first who is excelling at the international game and still has relatively ordinary numbers and at the regional game or the domestic level, whichever part of the world you're in. Because again, it depends on a number of factors. Opportunities, how much domestic cricket or regional cricket would he play? It's about motivation. Is he really motivated to the level that he would be playing for the West Indies? So there are a number of variables tied in. And therefore, when you made those comparisons with Gale and of course the great Sir Vivian Richards, we again have to temper it with the understanding that he's still someone who is relatively young in the international game, although he is closer to 30 at this stage when you look at his personal development. But the fact is, he is flowering at a time where the West Indies need that sort of consistency in the middle order. Because remember, West Indies still have to assure qualification for the 2027 Cricket World Cup. They certainly don't want a repetition of 2 years ago, when they had to go into qualification in Zimbabwe, and we know how that went. The West Indies lost a high-scoring match to the Netherlands, lost to Scotland, and that was it as far as qualification for the World Cup. So yes, we can celebrate, we can laud these individual performances, but at a team level, the West Indies need to find the right level of consistency to ensure that they pick up enough points to make qualification automatic for South Africa in 2027.
Yeah, and on that Casey Carter point that Ricardo referenced earlier on, I would think that part of my assessment of the young man is that he is showing the tendency to come good in important moments or, in big occasions. Remember in the Under-19 World Cup final in 2016 when the West Indies beat India for the title, he top scored with an unbeaten 52. So he is showing, based on his record so far, that he has the appetite to come good when it's needed.
And we need to see that certainly as we move forward to those vital games coming up for World Cup qualification, automatic qualification. But yes, you're right. He does seem to be showing that tendency. And also, at a wider level, the West Indies need to stop starting badly and then saying, well, we did our learnings and then we picked up after that. At some point, you're going to start badly and there's no picking up after that. Because, as we said before, the West Indies are on the cusp, whereas basically it's not assured that they'll qualify automatically. They may go into the qualifiers. It depends on their results going forward. So not just Casey Carty, and I appreciate the adulation and the jubilation over his performances, but he and everyone else needs to recognize that it's about West Indies and the West Indies team. And yes, we want these individual players to shine. We want Jaden Seals and all the bowlers to shine. But we want them to shine consistently so that it doesn't become a matter of great anxiety when it comes to qualifying for major tournaments.
Yeah, and remember before the series started, I remember the captain, Shea Hope, talking about bowling well in the opening overs, which they didn't get at all in that first match. But with Jaden Seals, it is obvious that they got something from the front end of their bowling, which we discussed at the top of the show, with Jaden Seals adding a serious impact in the opening overs for the West Indies.
And of course, all of this just fuels what Ricardo would have said about him some time ago. But yes, and we see it in all formats. We saw on a Dust Bowl in Pakistan, in Multan, how effective he was on the first morning of that first test match. Again, injuries seem always to be an issue with him, and that's another concern. But whenever he gets the opportunity, as we saw just yesterday in that rain-affected match, he is quite lethal. And therefore, he has to continue in that vein. He has to recognize that he is effectively the spearhead of the West Indies team right now. Alzarri Joseph is there, but again, dogged by inconsistencies and sometimes loses his focus when he gets vexed about this, that, or the other. Essentially, there is no room, there is no place for that. There is no place for saying, well, we had a bad first match and we were able to make up thereafter. Because again, against higher quality opposition, against opponents that won't let you off the hook the next time around, it's not good enough to say, well, it was just the first match. And as a result of that, we learned our lesson and we were able to come back better. But you're right. As far as Jaden Seals, as far as Matthew Ford, who's showing the qualities of a genuine all-rounder, Justin Graves as well with the bat and with the ball, you're seeing these cricketers growing in confidence in their roles in the West Indies team. That, however, has to translate into consistent success if the West Indies are to make it automatic qualifying for world tournaments.
Yeah, you mentioned two names there that I think we should talk a little bit more about, Matthew Ford and Justin Graves, because they are showing themselves as players who appear to have a good future ahead of them, Faz. But I agree with you, we need to see repeat performances. The team will not grow and the West Indies will not become powerful again if these kinds of performances are not repeated in a consistent way.
And that's why the upcoming series against England is going to be so very important. Will the West Indies fall flat first match? And then the excuse is, well, that was the first match, we did our learnings and we're going to be better the next two. Again, in international level competition now, because series are so short, there's so little time between series. You barely have time to acclimatize. Well, there probably isn't much between Ireland and the UK and England anyway, as far as climatic conditions at this time. But the point is that these players need to show this Casey Carty type consistency. Not everybody's going to average 94 over 7 matches. Not everybody's going to average 54 over 7 matches. But what you can do is certainly grow to the level where you're able to score runs or take wickets or be economical more often than not, rather than having a couple of spectacular innings that everybody talks about because you've done almost nothing either side of those 2 innings.
Yeah, all right, Faz, let's see how it will all go for that England one-day international series. The West Indies have now won 7 of their last 9, is it? In one-day international cricket, or 7 of their last 10. So let's see if they can continue on that positive trend in that England campaign coming up starting on Thursday. As usual, Faz, thanks very much and we'll chat again soon.
Sure, take care.
All right, West Indies men taking the spotlight for segment 1. We'll be discussing the women in segment 2. Stay with us.